anthem on the lips of most Nigerians as we speak is the creation of the state police, starting from Mr. President to the Vice President, members of the National Assembly. Almost every Nigerian now is calling for the need for us to create state police due to the challenges of insecurity that is facing the country, especially in the northern part of the country. But then, how do we structure it in such a way that it is not abused, as been insinuated in some quarters, that certain governors might take advantage of the creation of state police to hunt their political rivals? So to say, then what part of our constitution do we need to amend to suit the creation of state police? For this particular conversation, we have Adewale Adeoye, is a journalist and a public affairs analyst with us in the studio. It's our pleasure to have you on the conversation.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, so looking at the situation of the country as we speak, recently it was Bama local government in Borno State. We also had similar incident in Kaduna State. Insecurity, whether we like it or not, is staring us in the face despite the effort of the federal government. Is this the right time for us to have our state police?
I actually think we should have had state police several years ago. Since we started the concept of federalism, state police should have been an integral part of federalism. There is no country that practices federalism that does not honor state police. It's one of the pillars of democracy in a federal structure like the one we have in Nigeria. We claim to have borrowed federalism from the United States, which we returned to in 1979. And what should have followed immediately was that we should have had state policing. Because in the past, when we started regional government, each region had its own regional police. And I think that when we advanced to federalism, the normal thing should have been to have federal policing. If the president achieves this aim of having a federal police, I think it will be the biggest, the most fundamental intervention in the political structure of Nigeria since 1979. In fact, it will go down in history as the best president we've ever had in terms of addressing the unitary security structure of Nigeria. Okay. And there are a lot of misconceptions, arguments about not having state police. They argue that if you allow state governments to have state police, then they will be controlled and misused by the state authorities. But we should ask ourselves, is the current federal police not being misused by the federal government? There have been so many instances where federal police, were misused by the federal government. We recall the raid on Odi in November 1999. Policemen were the first call of people that were sent there to go and take over or destroy the place before soldiers were later set in. We remember what happened in 2003 when the current president was contesting for a second term. The federal government withdrew its police escort, withdrew the secret service, and left him vulnerable. It was only by chance that he was able to survive that episode. We recall what happened, I think, in the 90s when 8 people from the same family in Okoba were shot. 8 people from the same family were killed. They were carried out by state police, by the federal government police. So the idea of saying that, states will misuse state police can also be debunked by the fact that today we have Amotekun in some of the states. The state governors misusing Amotekun, So we need to understand that the functions of police is not just about protecting governors. It's about protecting the people. There is cultural aspect, there is sociological aspect, there is environmental aspect. Policemen are supposed to be concerned about our environment. Children who want to cross the highway, the policeman needs to assist them. People that are physically challenged, policemen need to assist them. Get information about terrorism, about crime, high-level crime, about corruption, about destruction of the people's moral values. For instance, our environment, our forest. That is the role of the police. So the police is not just about what a governor thinks or what the president thinks. There are a whole lot of cultural issues that the police needs to be involved. Okay. And if the police is not psychologically grounded, in the culture and values of a people, there is no way such a policeman can protect the people. Yeah. The police must be grounded on the environment, the geography, the psychology, the sociology of a people. If you take a policeman who is an indigene of Zamfara State to come to Lagos and be DPO, it cannot be used to the culture and the values of the people. The same way, if you take a policeman from Lagos State to go and be the DPO in Borno State, he doesn't understand the culture, he doesn't understand the values, language. He doesn't understand the geography of the environment. So there's no way such people can actually protect that environment. Okay. So I think these are the fundamental issues that propel the need for Nigeria to have state police. It's going to reduce crime, it's going to stabilize the country, and it's going to lead to prosperity in terms of defense of human life and then human property.
Okay, Mr. Adeoye, I'm glad that you've mentioned all of these issues, why the need for state police is paramount. But again, you did say that we should have had state police long ago. Yeah. But now that, this is coming up again and a lot of clamor are coming up for the creation of state police, the question to ask is, do you think it is only because of the insecurity issues we are having? Is that why there is, this is gaining traction again? Mr. President said it before he traveled, that now is the time for the country to again dust the books and look at the issues surrounding creation of state police. Mr. Vice President said it yesterday. Again, standing on Mr. President's wish that Nigeria can create state police. So in your own personal opinion, why do you think this is suddenly again gaining traction and the discussion is getting bigger than what we thought? If we remember that the governors, we're actually waiting on the governors to agree on how many states will sign up to the issues on the creation of state police. I think so far about 26 states governors have agreed to its creation. So judging from that, where we ended it at that time, and now that we're beginning to hear again about the need for the creation of state police, why do you think it is gaining more traction as we speak?
I think the people who don't want state police, most of our brothers or some of our brothers in the north, they feel that Nigeria could go on the way it is, that a structure that is even about to collapse, we can still manage and see how we are going to sustain the structure. But I think it has now dawned on them, because of the objective reality in their states, that every day they notice that, look, the federal government cannot effectively police every aspect of the country. Take Niger State, for instance, which is the largest in terms of land mass. It is the state governor, the people, that can effectively police Niger State. The same thing with Borno State, Kwara State. So I think with the spate of insecurity that they are seeing, they now notice that, look, if there are security challenges in Zamfara, and you just send soldiers, maybe who are indigenous of Ekiti State and all that, to Zamfara to go and deal with security problem, the number one problem is that they are not psychologically involved. They are not emotionally involved, because it's a territory that is strange to them. Even for them to collect information, there is language barrier. Right. There is cultural barrier. For instance, in some places in the north, you see Bashigayo, you cannot enter, a place. You cannot enter certain places that are sacred. The same thing also in some areas in the southwest here. If some Egigu are doing some festival and a criminal is there, you can't just bring somebody from south, just go there. You need somebody who is part of that culture to be able to go there and say, look, I want to arrest a criminal that's in this environment. And we must also not forget that there was nothing like federal police in the past. In fact, the Nigerian police started as regional. Right. The first one we had was in 1879, which was the Hausa Constabulary. Later we had 1896 police in Lagos Police Constabulary. Then we had the Niger Delta Constabulary. I think that was 1894. So the people that brought Nigeria together never conceived of a federal police. It was the coup of Aguiyi Rosi that created a unitary system where people were marched together. We never had we've always had regional police. At the time Lagos had its own police, Niger Delta had its own police, and at the time we had regional police in southwest, northwest, and then southeast. So this idea was an imposition by people who are interested in protecting people in power, not protecting the people. Right. If you are conscious about defending the people, protecting the people, the right thing is to have, the right thing we need to go to do is to have state police.
Okay.
But our architecture is designed in a way that security operatives are to protect government officials.
And not the people.
And not the people. But if you have a concept that is driven by the people, then the people need to be involved. It's their right. They need to be inclusive. They need to be included in the whole process of security. Okay. So I think that this is the right time to go. And I think I will be so glad if the president can take the bull by the horn. It's really going to change a lot of things in Nigeria.
Okay, if indeed we are going to have the creation of these state police, of course, we will need to amend our constitution in such a way that the creation of state police will factor every of these issues being raised so far on the program. But then, I do agree with you that Nigeria is presently under police, and when you look at the federal police as presently constituted, it is underfunded. Yeah. There are no vehicles, they buy their uniforms, they buy their boots. So, for some of these states who are clamoring for the creation of state police, they go hand in hand, or cap in hand, to the federal government to collect allocation. How will they be able to fund this police when they are created?
The federal government currently is funding the police.
Underfunding?
Yes, funding and underfunding. But you see, the police we have today has 8 departments. Each one is headed by DIG. I can tell you that the funds that go to these offices, by the time you have state police, will no longer be there.
Okay.
The fund that goes to the office of the IG, with the paraphernalia of office, with the convoy, with the staff, with the huge office in Abuja, with the maintenance, with the DSU, will no longer be there. So, creating state police is going to lead to a lot of management of waste that we have now. And of course, each state needs to determine the number of police that the state needs. For instance, if you have about 30,000 police in Lagos, police may decide that Lagos may decide we don't need up to 30,000. If you have about 10,000 police in Ekiti State might decide that, look, we don't need up to 10,000 policemen. So each state needs to cut its own, quota according to its own size. And it also means that the current funding, huge budget going to the federal police, we will now have to tribute this budget to the 36 states of the federation. And I believe that each state will be creative in terms of a lot of initiative, on how to raise funds, maybe tax, security tax, maybe to tax funds, to be able to create a novel way to be able to fund its own police structure. So what we have now is a model system that is controlled by the center, which gives room to corruption, which gives room to mismanagement, which gives room to deployment of security men beyond reasonable expectation, beyond the needs assessment of many communities. So if states have policemen, they will be able to have the police number based on the kind of their own need assessment. So it's not going to be assessed by the federal government. It's going to be assessed by each state. And the each state will be able to manage its own police based on its own budget. And people have been talking about, the governors will misuse them. It depends on how you create the structure. For instance, in the US, if you want to get promotion, the community needs to be involved. I visited a place sometimes ago, and the policeman was looking for promotion. And he went to a man's house and said, look, I need to, the community needs to fill this form for me before I can be promoted. Then the man said, but I don't know you. I was just saying he was my host, So he said, I don't know you. Then the policeman now started reeling out information about him. The time you came in to 12 midnight, so date, the time some people came to have a party here, the time that you left your house, some visitors came, an old woman. So that means that the policeman was actually monitoring.
Right.
So the man was impressed and said, okay, I will sign. And then he signed. And he needed so many people to be able to sign. When you have that kind of police structure, there's no way they will oppress the people. Because they know that in their promotion, in their career, the people are also involved. Unlike here, when you go to a policeman, you are looking for maybe Awolowo Street, or you are looking for Mbono GKC, he will be telling you it's the next street to him. He doesn't know. He hasn't even got the map of that area. So they're just there on the street. They don't know the environment that they're supposed. They don't know the people and the environment they're supposed to protect. So I think that if we adopt global structure, it's really going to be very beautiful. No policeman will be able to, no governor will be able to use his power to, manipulate the police process. Yeah.
I mean, so this morning, I mean, it's obvious that you are for the creation of state police. And so let's also look at, for those who are proponents for the creation of state police, who are also thinking that at the moment the federal structure is overwhelmed by the current situation, especially security challenges across Nigeria. And so I'd like to ask you, perhaps if, the issues around the creation of state police were to scale through and we have state police across Nigeria, is this able to also rekindle the trust of the average Nigerian or the average citizen in the community policing system as a means of, policing? Or, because again, we know that a lot of Nigerians have trust deficit with government. And so if we're able to create state police, do you think that for some reason, this will also increase the level of trust that an average individual has in the security architecture of every state?
Yeah, I think the tradition is that when you are living in a particular environment and the people who are protecting that environment are known to you, you have some level of confidence.
Yeah.
If you know their background, if you know their parents, if you know their family background, you have some level of confidence in them. And if these people also are people that know you, they've interacted with you for a long time, they live in your environment, there is some level of confidence that they have in that community. For instance, if there is a crime being committed, let's say at a Dumota, and people are calling for response, and then you call somebody from Zamfara State to come and he doesn't. Well, he will go, but if you call somebody who's an indigene of that Dumota, right, the first fear is that, maybe my community is involved, right, maybe my relations are involved, maybe my brothers, my sisters. So he will, be motivated. The morale will be so high to know that, look, this service is not just for the community, it's also in my own interest. Yeah. So if you have people that are known to you protecting a particular environment, naturally there's a high level of mutual trust. Yeah. And if there is a crime committed in a particular place and the policeman has lived in that place for a long time, let's say for 20 years he was born there is that instinct that tells him, a particular phone has been stolen. I know that these boys must be involved. If he has an idea of the kind of people, the terrain. Even in my own community, I'm not a policeman.
But you have an idea.
In my village, they call me that something has happened. I have an idea of the people that are responsible, and I know if I want to tell the policeman, look, go to this area, I know that, because we know their tradition, we know their history, we know the people that are bad boys, we know the people that smoke hemp, we grew up with them, we school with them. So in order to be able to pinpoint those criminals, it will be very, very easy for us. Right. So, but in Nigeria is a place where we want to build a system that, people fear, this system is just to protect a few of us that are in power. We don't care much about the ordinary man on the street. Right. If we care about the ordinary people, we should know that the right thing to do is to have community policing and state policing so that you can have some level of, trust and then security for everyone, without fear. People.
Okay, looking at the Nigerian police as presently constituted, you would agree with me that part of the problem plaguing the Nigerian police is training, lack of motivation, and of course, little investment in ICT to tackle crime and insecurity in the country. So while we are preparing to accommodate the creation of state police into our constitution, how well do we tackle this problem, like I just raised, that of training, motivation, and investment in ICT, so that we will not have a repeat of what we are battling with the Nigerian police, the federal police, so to say?
Yeah. The first thing is that if we have state police, there's going to be, because the idea of federalism, by those who came with that concept of federalism, is to have multiple experiments, so that you have in different layers, the state and then federal government. Then there could be mutual competition. So I can tell you that if we have state police, Lagos police, the way Lagos is police, the way we run Lagos police will not be the same as we run the police in Kaduna or Jos, And that was what happened during the First Republic, that people were coming here when the Western Nigerian television was established. People were coming from the north, from the east to learn. So there is going to be mutual competition. One of the state may not be at the same level of development, but By the time you notice that Anambra is coming up with an initiative, other states also want to
copy
to copy the idea. But in this case, we have a kind of a mature structure that once the IG decides what we want to do, then everybody accept. There's no room for mutual competition. Look at what is happening. I am aware that Lagos pays some extra stipend to some categories of policemen in Lagos. That doesn't happen in many other states. So there is going to be mutual competition, so that when Lagos does something better, other people also want to emulate, copy. So I believe that having 30 state police, we may learn from what is happening in Borno State. We may learn from what is happening in Kaduna State. So it's going to lead to mutual competition, and that rivalry, will make people to be able to, to benefit from each other. There's going to be a kind of symbiotic relationship. And having state police does not mean that there's not going to be something like the FBI. We are still going to have a federal, small federal police, like the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the US, that will deal with specific matters, but it's going to be very small. Like in the US now, you can never talk about the Inspector General of Police. In Canada, there's nothing like the Inspector General of Police. Right. It's only here that you are talking about IG, one big man in a big office with huge building and with all sort of funding going to him, which he has the right to
decide on how he spends the money.
I like that angle that you've come into. Sorry to cut your thoughts. It's just so that you can land on where I'm coming from, and where you've also said, even if we were localizing the police or creating state police, there still needs to be that checks and balance from the federal arm of government or from the federal system of government. So this is where I'd like for you to elaborate on. You've talked about the fact that if a state has novel ideas, then other states can also copy from such an idea. So my question is this: if we're also going to have seamlessly something at the federal level that's still going to serve like a regulation or a body, then can we begin to look at standardization when it comes to training, when it comes to use of firearms, so that the state police in Lagos can also, be replicated, or can be the same state police in Adamawa State. Their orientation will be the same, their training will be the same. They're just serving in their different states of of employment. So is that a possibility, or do we just leave it at every state to their own identity, or to their own dynamics, to their own workings? So as much as it is local police or state police, however we want to call them, should there still be a form of uniformity when it comes to their workings and their operations, or should we just assume that if you're employed in Lagos as a policeman, it doesn't mean that that is the kind of policeman I will see when I travel to Imo State?
Yeah, I think globally there is a standard training procedure. Okay. They call it standard training procedure for policemen. Right. Which in terms of use of firearms, in terms of international conventions on the use of firearms, in terms of human rights, there are United Nations conventions and treaties on, which also affect every country, every member of the UN. So that standard police training procedure is global. However, states may need their own subjective training requirements. Okay. For instance, if you're in Bayelsa State, that is largely water, you need people that can operate on
divers,
marine police, that we need to have training on marine environment,
use of water,
to be able to be trained to be used to that environment. And then the kind of crime we have in Borno State is not necessarily the kind of crime we have in Lagos. Right. For instance, in Borno State, where you have terrorism, you have suicide bombers, the training of the policemen needs to focus more on that. It's not as if Lagos policemen will not have that because of looking, in terms of foresight. Right. But most policemen in Borno State, for instance, needs to be grounded on how to identify the terrorists, how to deal with
escalate situations.
Yes, because the character of crime all over the country, the character is not the same. The form is not the same. So there will be specific training on, for instance, in Lagos State, we have courtesan. We don't have as much as courtesan in places like Borno State. So the kind of training that will be given to policemen in each state, we have to address local situation. Right. The specific local situation plus the global police training that we have. You know, this state police also deal with the problem of a situation where somebody will commit crime in Lagos, and then you come from Abuja because the federal government is interested. You pick him, you take him to Abuja. You know, sometimes you have certain cases, they ask you to report police quota in Abuja, and you are living in Lagos, or you are living in Ekiti State, or you are living in Anambra. So you have to transport yourself all the way from Anambra, something that the local police could have been able to handle. So I think that there are all sorts of gains, you know, associated with community policing. And of course, we are just deceiving ourselves. Almost every state for now has one form of
community,
you know, you know, in the east, in the west, you have ISBAB. In some northern states, you have Amotekun here. So what we just need is to formalize it, to give it legal backing. We already have the structure in place, even though we are deceiving ourselves. And then the use of our firearms, you know, just equip them with, you know, modern equipment, and then so that they can carry out their. And we should also know that policing is not just about arms. It's also about intelligence gathering. So there are a lot of policemen, you know, in the state police that will not even use arms. They will not even put on uniform.
True.
You know, spy police, people who are involved in intelligence gathering, they don't need to put on uniform. Somebody who's a vendor, you know, hawking newspapers, can be a policeman. He gets information from people. Somebody who is a trader, somebody who is a, you know, member of NURTW, can be a member of the police force. His area is to spy on crime and then text message or make phone calls to the appropriate quarters. So police, you know, police is not just about people putting on uniform and carrying arms. Right. You know, there are a lot of things that are involved that, you know.
Okay, now that we have all agreed, or we seem to be on the same page regarding the creation of state police, how soon should it be, especially now that members of the National Assembly are trying to amend the 1999 Constitution because of series of challenges plaguing the country?
I think we should have had it yesterday.
Wow.
So it's too late. And it's not too, it's late, but it's not too late. So I hope that the National Assembly should start the process. Maybe through an executive bill from the president or through private member bill. But I think that we just need to start immediately before it is too late. You know, at the time people felt, you know, we can go on, you know, the way we have been carried on since 1960 and all that. But it's obvious now that there's no way we can. We need to protect this country from an internal implosion. And one of those ways is to address fundamental problems of insecurity. We need to have a situation where states can be in control. You cannot say the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is #1 security, you know, officer, but he has no right, you know, over the police. Look at how people are talking about the NSAS and all that. He had no right to deploy soldiers. He had no right to deploy policemen. Well, the whole blame came on the soldiers, you know, but he was not actually technically responsible. But I think we have state police, then we'll have been able to say, okay, the governor, you are responsible for deploying these policemen to, you know, to carry out certain activities during the NSA, but he was not actually in charge. And if a police commissioner is not good in a particular state, no governor has the right to remove the police commissioner. Sure. You still have to wait for Abuja. And Abuja may decide to retain that police commissioner because he's serving their own interest. Right. So it is time for us to have state policing, and I believe that it's a major step that, in fact, is going to add to the feeders of the president, if you can take the bull by the horn to carry out this assignment within the shortest time possible.
Let's quickly talk about funding. I know that you and Ajibola talked about funding earlier, where at the moment funding is one of the problems or challenges facing the Nigeria police force. Now that we are battling with issues around minimum wage, issues around wage increment and all of that, and also from some quarters, the governors are, at least more money also coming to the state. Do you see issues of funding also being a problem with the states if the creation of state police were to have started yesterday?
Yeah, initially there will be some teething problems. Just like when BRT started in Lagos here. The first day, the first week it was, you know, people almost gave up. But, you know, after some few days, everything was normalized. So I believe that there will be some teething problems, you know, especially in terms of setting up the structure. And that's why it's not something that the governor will just need to decide alone. The House of Assembly needs to be involved. The Nigerian Bar Association needs to be involved. The judiciary, we need people like, for instance, the State Police Service Commission, you know, that needs to be set up. The National Assembly needs to be involved, and then the retired judges, you know. I would prefer a situation where that kind of commission is led by a credible retired judge, you know. And then even the NUJ needs to be involved. community organizations, the
CDAs
civil
and
society,
CDCs.
CDAs, they need to have representatives so that the governor is not a property of the governor. It's going to be something that is owned by the people. So when you have that kind of situation, when you are talking about disciplining the police, when you are talking about dealing with excesses, those individuals will be able to deal with, with those problems. And also the funding. You are going to have a situation where the State Police Service Commission will come out with creative ideas. Currently, there is no estate where people don't pay security
fees. True.
In my estate, pay about 6,000, 5,000 every month. If we have a structure, state policing, we may not need those things again. And in Lagos, you know how many estates we have? They are in hundreds. So if those funds go into state policing, imagine people spending. There are some estates that people pay up to 20,000 naira every month. So an individual paying about 220,000 naira in a year. So if that funding, you reduce it and then it goes to, you call it security fund, goes into the purse of Lagos is going to have trillions of naira. Some private companies, you see that they pay security fund to their community. Right. Individuals, CDAs and all that, they are paying. Even people are not even living in estate. Go to Mushin, every street, you pay one thing or the other. Go to Ajegule. So those funds can go, into the purse of the state policing. And Lagos is going to have a lot of funding. The Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, they will make contributions. It's also in their own interest. So, and I believe that it's just to be a little bit more creative. Problem of funding will not be a sustainable challenge. And states can also on their own send people for training outside the country. They can send people to Saudi Arabia for training, to Israel, to Russia on their own. They will not wait for the federal government to do that for them. If we send people on intelligence guide, for instance, to Russia, they come back and then train the trainers. Right. So states will be able to take initiatives on their own instead of waiting, for the federal government to guide them on what to do.
Before we let you go, at the moment, what would you wish to see, not only from the Nigeria Police Force now, but from all arms of security agencies in Nigeria, especially with issues surrounding insurgent attacks, Boko Haram attacks in the Northeast, an era where we thought we were already overcoming as a country, but we are beginning to see these attacks again in piecemeal, and it's becoming worrisome, not only to the state governors, but also to the federal government. So what should be done? Again, we say intelligence is not enough, but then we know that the military is trying, their arms and ammunitions being purchased, but it doesn't seem like things are working how we want them to work. So what's your opinion? Where do we go from here?
I think that the past 8 years, before the last 2.5 years, was really hell for Nigerians. That is truth. And I have a feeling that unless we deal with the political aspect of terrorism, we have people who think that they can use terrorism as a scar, as a back dog to negotiate for power. They think that, look, if you don't give us power, then
you can't have peace.
You can't have peace. So, there was a time that we had the names of founders of terrorism. They listed the names of those people and all that. How many people have been, tried? Right. And I can assure you, as we move towards 2027, because some people are desperate for power and they want to bring down the government, you are going to see a lot of more terrorist activities. Those things are for political interest. They are not really driven by, ideological terrorism. They are driven by people who think, look, we must create problem for this country and then make sure that the country has a very bad image in the face of Nigerians and also in the international community. Right. So I think we must deal with the political aspect of terrorism. And that falls on the president. He needs their political will. I believe they have a lot of information. At the time, the terrorists, some people went to the bush to meet them. They were hosted. They had dinner with them, some years back. And why should that kind of situation happen? Malam Gumi went to the forest, met them, and he was trying to negotiate peace and all. That means that we know where these terrorists are hiding. So we need to deal with that political aspect. The other aspect is to ensure that we get the people to be more involved in security. For instance, it was when we started having civilian GTF in Borno State, when people on their own were involved in Niger State, that they were able to, to defeat terrorism. So people need to be more involved. It's their life, it's their culture, it's their future that is at stake. Our people need to be involved in the environment where security police are operating. So when you have policemen or people working in Lagos, it's always better to have people from this state to at least form the chunk of those people that are, so that they can, they can be more active and more inspired to carry out their activities.
We'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Adewale Adeoye, journalist and public affairs analyst, for finding time to be with us on the program today. We appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Well, as the conversations continue on the clamor for the creation of state police, it behoves on Mr. President and the state governors to ensure that the clamor of Nigerians do come to reality, and the issues around state police, according to Mr. Adeoye, if done by Mr. President, will definitely be added to his many feathers. We'll leave it here for now. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, Ade Binkwe will be here with her Lagos conversation.